Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here with my co-host, Jerrika Rydell. We are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey, Alex.
I beat you.
All right. I was just turning my brightness up so I could see you. There we go. Hi.
I thought you said turning my brain up.
That too. That's it's a good start to the morning. I need
Early
to do
in the morning.
Yeah. Oh, geez. How are things?
Good. Yeah, I'm good. What's new with you?
It's almost that adventure race I think I've mentioned on here before. It's coming up in the next few weeks. So I've been feeling a little, I don't know, nervous, I guess, just because typically, right, with a little one, I would have trained probably a hell of a lot more for something like this than I have. But it's like I've been on a mountain bike twice, and we probably have to do 80 to 100 kilometers of mountain biking. So
there's four of you, right?
Yeah, you have to move together as a team.
Has your team been training hard?
Yeah, they're all like doing great, but they don't seem to be worried about me. So, just being the only girl, you really want to make sure you hold your own out there too. So,
is it three guys and you?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you'll do.
Yeah. So I think I've been feeling like a little bit too with the little one, like you feel a bit of guilt, right? Like it's like, oh, I want to go do this mountain biking thing for a couple hours tonight. We live right by these beautiful mountain biking trails. And there's a class or something. And it's like, I want to go, but I should be doing this, or I feel like I should be doing this. And with the little one or housework or whatever. And that kind of ties into what I want to talk about today, just because it's funny because we work with moms, right? Primarily. And we haven't really, like, sometimes we dive into this mom guilt or, this feeling of putting yourself first or making yourself a non-negotiable. But I just think it'd be worth kind of just chatting about, we're both parents. We're both feeling these feelings and we're at different phases in life. So I don't know, I think it'd be cool to touch on this, that it's real, that we feel it even as coaches when we give you this advice, or like we expect you or we want you to do something. And then as the client, you're like, I can't though, because maybe I have this, and this. I don't know. So I think it'd be fun to just touch on how we maneuver these types of life challenges and things we still want to do for ourselves, and how important it really is.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a great topic. It's something that I think every parent probably struggles, or I imagine it's every parent. Every parent struggles with it at some point. It's funny because to me it's like cyclical. You go through waves where it's like you've got a good routine going, you're figuring it all out, you're like, man, I'm smashing this thing, and then something changes, routine changes, schedule changes or whatever, and you're like, I suck, I'm a bad parent, I'm not taking care of myself. I don't have any of it figured out.
Yeah, you're like, I should devote, as soon as you get that moment to yourself. Well, I've been experiencing this with the naps, because like we're finally crushing independent sleep lately, and it's been amazing. But then it's like, okay, I have this huge laundry list of things that the house needs, that maybe I should be working more and make more finances for the family. It's like this list of things I'm getting torn in a million directions, but I'm not sleeping, at night very well. I'm still, struggling. It's like, when am I going to put myself first, and at what point? So it's just, it's a weird, like you said, cyclical battle.
Well, and then you've got like you said, kind of the internal struggle of, should I take advantage of this nap and nap? Should I take advantage of this nap and fit in my exercise? Or should I take advantage of this nap and fit in the housework that also isn't getting done? Or my work, or
right.
It's like I've got maybe 20 minutes to an hour to take advantage of here. What is the best choice? And like the funny thing is, none of those are bad choices.
Perfect. Yeah, I was hoping you'd say exactly. And it's just about figuring out at what season, like you mentioned, kind of like what season in your life which ones become the priority, right? Because housework will always be there. Yes, I have this race and it's important to me, so maybe right now it's going to be getting that workout in. Or maybe if you're listening and you have some big goals coming up, right? It's this time of the year, you want to get a kickstart before the new year starts. You might as well start now. So you're like going to start putting yourself first in that sense. But I had this conversation with a friend the other day, and she's a new mom as well. And someone's like, you got to put yourself first. Like, the best advice I could give you is put yourself first. And she looks at the person and was like, but I'm not in that season of life. Like, I'm breastfeeding, I'm taking care of a couple week old. Like, I'm putting this child first. And I think it caused a bit of a good type of conversation between the two of them. It's that depending on what season, yes, I don't have to put myself maybe first in this very moment, but I need to prioritize myself. So it
Totally.
doesn't have to be number one, right? I don't have to always be choosing me number one, but I should be choosing me in the top 3 or 5, and depending on what's going on in that day, right? So it's just finding those gaps and places to what can I do for me in, yes, I have an hour nap. I need to give myself at least 10 minutes, whether that's even just like a headspace, like sit and do a meditation, whether that's a walk on the treadmill. I don't know. It could be anything, but it doesn't have to be that whole hour, is kind of what I'm getting at.
One of the best pieces of advice that my dad gave me when Emerson was really little was like, I was called him one day and I was stressed out because I was like, I'm exhausted. There's tons of stuff around the house that I haven't done. I have work to accomplish. The grass is like ridiculously long. I was like, I don't know how to like navigate all of this right now, Dad. And he was like, you know what? He's like, don't cut the grass. He's like, you should cut
Yeah.
the grass because your neighbors obviously want you to cut grass and you should have pride and take care of your yard. But he's like, nothing bad comes from the grass being long. And he's like, think about it. He's like, you got to think of like, what's top priority? What's life or death? What's really not going to matter at the end of the day? He's like, so right now you've got a newborn baby at home. Expect for the next 2 years that you're not going to live to the standard that you expect. Your house is going to be dirtier, your yard's going to be less kept, laundry is not going to get done as often. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
these things that aren't going to change quality of life, that aren't going to hurt anybody, are the things that have to get pushed to a lower priority until you regain sleep naturally, until those kinds of things start happening.
Right.
Leave the baby in a room without worrying about it doing something or hurting itself, and you can actually go outside and cut the lawn. He's like, that's fine. And it was like a massive eye opener to me, because what this is all circling back to a lesson, guys. This is something that we all do with our health and fitness, regardless of if you have a newborn baby at home or if you have a million other priorities like the rest of us. We need to sit down and actually decide what has to get accomplished for us to consider it a successful day. And most of the time, we don't do that. Most of the time, we look at this massive to-do list, we get overwhelmed by it, we knock off 2, 3, 4 things, which is pretty freaking good. But then it's like, oh man, I did 1/10 of my to-do list today. I did nothing. So instead, what I started doing after my dad gave me that lesson was sitting down at night when I had the most mental clarity, the day's done, and I know what I want to accomplish the next day. And I would write out a list of 1 to 3 things that I wanted to accomplish the next day. And I'm like, if I did these 1 to 3 things, it would be successful. So I still have this massive to-do list, but instead of just looking at it and choosing to cut the lawn when there's something way more important than cutting the lawn,
Right.
I would sit down at night and be like, okay, what are the top 1 to 3 things that need to get done? Rarely ever is it going to be cutting the lawn. It's like if I happen to get a great sleep, maybe I'll cut the lawn, but it doesn't need to get done, because all too often we're going to go cut the lawn instead of doing something that in a clear state of mind we would choose as a top priority.
Right. It's like that. In the past, we've talked about, labeling your tasks as whether they're important, not important, urgent type things. So the tasks that are important and most urgent, at least do one of those a day.
Yeah.
And then the other two might be something a little bit less, but at least you're feeling like, instead of trying to tackle, 10 things that are non-urgent, non-important, and then being like, that was a mad day. If you can get the one that's most important, quite urgent, then you'll feel successful, even though it's just one.
And inevitably you're going to cut the lawn. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's gonna
just like,
happen.
it doesn't need to. If you have that 30-minute golden nap that your child goes down and you choose to cut the lawn instead of getting in your workout, which was actually a really high priority to you, then you're just making it up as you go, and you're flying by the seat of your pants, and your priorities are out of order, and you know that when you're sitting there with a clear state of mind. But in that moment, as soon as that kid goes to sleep, you're like, okay, let's maximize this half hour. What can I do? Oh, I could cut the lawn in a half hour. And later on, you're kicking yourself because you could have also done a little workout in a half an hour, which may have left you feeling more fulfilled.
And not only that, right, when we figure out what activities drive us, right? Whether that is a workout, whether that is meal prepping and eating good food, whether that is a meditation, like doing those things that are so healthy for our mind and body, will likely have more energy in the evening to now go cut the lawn if we got the workout done in the morning, right? Whereas if we didn't and we were just doing mindless tasks quickly throughout that time, we're exhausted at nighttime. We're not getting that workout in at nighttime, right? So flipping the when we're going to do these things can also play a big factor in how successful and how productive we are too, right? And I remember saying to my mom, like, I was feeling, like I mentioned before, I was feeling guilty about not, let's say, cutting the lawn. But she's like, no, you should actually feel guilty when you don't take time to prioritize yourself, because it affects how well you're caring for not only yourself but for others around you. And it's true, right? Because then I was so exhausted and I wasn't getting in that workout, which, as everyone listening knows, like how important that is for my mental clarity. So then I was just kind of, letting Beckett play on the ground, but nothing stimulating, nothing fun. I was just kind of, I wasn't being the mom that I'm usually so proud of, right? So I think that was really eye opening when she said that. I was like, okay, you're right. Leave the crap to later.
And everything you're saying is super true. Like at the end of the day, guys, we want you to better yourself for you. You shouldn't have to do it for anyone else. You should do it for you, because that's really important. You're the one who's always going to be there for you. If you're deciding to exercise or deciding to take care of yourself because of your family or your friends or the people around you, it's hard to keep going. You have to want it for you. But Jerrica's 100% right. When we take care of ourselves and take care of ourselves well, we'd show up better at work. We show up better for our loved ones. We show up better for our spouses and our kids and our friends. And we show up better for ourselves. And so it's really, really hard to quantify that, because when we're looking at that half hour block of time and deciding what to do, and we decide to do a task around the house, which isn't necessarily wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But just like Jer said, when we choose to prioritize ourselves, it refills our cup. It gives us the energy to do better, do more, do extra. So take that into consideration when you're making those decisions. I find a really helpful activity is to not look at like who you want to be right now, but who you want to be in the future. And then start listing out what future you would be doing. So if I'm like, yeah, I want to be I want to be able to always keep up with my kid. I want to be able to at any time of day hop on a bike and do that long bike ride that Jared's talking about, and not be like, holy shit, I'm way out of shape. I didn't train for this enough. Like obviously we're not always going to be at our peak, but I want to be able to tackle these things without needing to really, really train for them, because I'm always in good health and I'm always in good shape.
Right.
And I want to be able to put aside work and focus on family time. So you list out these things, these attributes of what you want future you to be like. And then underneath, write what future you is going to have to do to make that happen. I'm going to have to start scheduling my priorities. I'm going to have to prioritize exercising 3 to 5 times a week. I'm going to have to do some strength training and some cardiovascular training. I'm going to have to prioritize my nutrition. And if we're not doing that now, then we're not going to get there, right? And so it doesn't mean you have to be getting it all right now, but we need to say, okay, now when I look at this list of things that I want future me to be doing, how can I take a step in that direction? How can I start changing the things I do today to move closer to that? Because if we don't, we're never going to get there.
Love it. That's so true. And I just want to circle back because you at the beginning you were just talking about, those 30-minute windows, and some people listening might not get, they're thinking, well, I don't have a kid that naps anymore. I'm not home. This still applies to you, right? You have a kid that might go to hockey practice for an hour. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to the grocery store and mindlessly walk the aisles? Or maybe at lunch you can send your order to people that, that buy it for you. I started doing that. It's pretty awesome. like the Instacart kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So I quickly do my, like when Beckett wakes up, I order my food. And then now that hour that maybe the kids at hockey practice, you're walking the rink, doing laps, you're doing lunges in the parking lot. Like, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but you have that hour to yourself where like there's no kind of a no excuse moment. So like no matter what situation or what season of life you're in with kids or and even without kids, it's finding those pockets where it's like what was I doing before and how can I turn that into some me time.
Walking's always been something that's really important to Devin and I, especially in like the fair weather. And so when Emerson was really little, we would put him in a stroller and we'd walk the waterfront or our neighborhood. And we loved it. We did that like until he like wouldn't sit in that stroller anymore,
Yeah.
like, until he was way too old to be sitting in a stroller, basically, because that's the only way we could keep that fast pace of walk. After that, he wouldn't sit in anymore. We felt kind of lost, and we're like, what do we do now? Well, we started getting him a bike and we started getting him to scooter, and then we'd walk with him. It was slower, but it was still something. And we very quickly, like if for any of you guys that have older kids, you know how fast they get good at biking. But in the beginning, it was a little bit slower. But instead of just being like, oh crap, that sucks that we've lost that really important part of our day, we now just had a slower walk, shorter walk, but we still got outdoors. We still got some movement in. And as he got faster, we quickly replaced that stroller walk with a bike walk. Now, as he gets older, it's not really fun for him to bike with us while we're walking because he's too fast at biking now. So once again, we've had to change it up. So now what happens is we usually all walk to a park and then he plays at the park while we walk laps. Or
Awesome.
one of us walks laps, the other one plays tag with him if there's no other kids at the park. And it's like this is what we're talking about, guys. Like there's so many times during the day where maybe we choose to just like sit on the couch for a half hour. And I'm not saying that doesn't have value or purpose, but there's ways that we can squeak these things in. Like, don't get me wrong, and I know Jared can agree with this. There was a time in our lives where training was one of our top priorities. Like I remember training twice a day, almost every single day,
Yeah.
and being like, yeah, I'm gonna do this forever. This feels freaking amazing. And like that doesn't happen now. But if I can make sure that I get that walk in and I can get in those 3 strength training sessions per week and I can
That's right.
squeak in a run here and there, like I'm still moving forward. I'm still doing what needs to get done.
It's so true, and I've learned that more than ever. I'm definitely a different um, exerciser these days, and honestly, my body thanks me for it. It's nice. The 3 days a week strength training is like it feels good. I walk every day, rain or shine. Thankfully, we have a dog that doesn't go to the bathroom in our backyard, so it forces us to walk always, a couple times a day. So um, we praise him for it, also curse him for it.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah,
that. I could see that.
yeah,
Don't
yeah.
get me wrong, I would love to get back to the point where I could train, put more time into training, but it hasn't really mattered that much. Like it's not like I could see if you're a professional athlete or something that it would be really freaking difficult, but at that point you're probably going to hire help to make sure that it happens.
Right.
Um, if I get in a 20-minute training session on a busy day, like that's an accomplishment, and I often do that, guys. Like this doesn't need to be an all or nothing thing. I'll often go to the gym and pick 1 or 2 main lifts, get those 1 or 2 main lifts done, a little bit of mobility work, and call it a day.
Absolutely. And like everyone listening is like, you know, your movement is your me time. And it's not always going to be my me time. And Alex is either him getting to the gym. It's like he mentioned, it's sometimes movement is bringing your kids with you and getting the movement in, and your me time is something else. And you have to figure out what that is. It might be 10 minutes, but you still want to find that time to prioritize yourself. And then incorporate your kids and your family with you throughout your other goals. Like, for example, mealtime, right? You might not you might be making the same meal for your whole family, but maybe you choose different portions, or maybe you're choosing not to eat certain things because it doesn't align with your goals, right? And it's not a matter of going out of your way to make a completely different meal because that might not be realistic right now. But just maybe having that conversation with your family, or just choosing what fits in line with your goals, right? It's always just going to be a kind of a moving pendulum, and depending on what's going on in your life.
And if all of this is relatable to you, like know that we've all been there and we're all going to be there again. Feeling guilty because of all of your conflicting priorities is completely normal. And we're not saying this like if you're not getting your exercise in, you're a bad person, because the time is going to come where you can't prioritize exercise for a period of time again. And Jerrika will be the same, and I will be the same. And there will be a week or 2 weeks where we don't get our workouts in and we feel a little bit sluggish. But it's bouncing back and figuring out what that new routine is going to look like, and not falling into that all or nothing. Because when we look at future self, if everybody does that exercise that I mentioned where we look at future self, I guarantee none of us want a future self that is not in good physical health. Right? Like we
Yep.
don't have complete control of our medical health, obviously, but none of us are like, yeah, you know what? I'll be content if I'm fatter, lazier, and not able to keep up and do the things that are important to me. And
Right.
so if we can all agree to that, then it's like, well, we need to start taking these small actions today that could have a positive outcome,
Right.
because
And
you
that
know
comes
you're
back
going
to
to be
consistency.
disappointed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this not just circles back to everything we talked about when we preach here. It's that consistency, and that might be a daily 10-minute walk right now, right? It might not be the huge jump to the scale on number 10, right? You might just be going on that scale, sliding scale of 1 to 10. You might be doing from a 2 to a 3, and that's a 10-minute walk because you're not doing that. So just kind of like Alex said, look at that future self. How can we move it one notch closer to that future self? Nothing crazy.
If you're like a brand new mom, like don't even listen to this. You've got other shit going on that you have to take care of.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Give yourself like 8 months. Like,
yeah, like none of this is relevant to you. But as we start to regain some of our time, these are the considerations that we need to have. And we know future self, we want future self to be as good of a parent as current self is. If I
yep,
don't take care of myself today, I will not be as good of a parent down the road as I am today. So take care of yourself now in whatever capacity that means. Take the 5 minute walk, do the mobility work, read your book for 5 minutes. Like give yourself some me time, some self-care, so that you can always be as awesome as you are now.
sweet, love it. Thanks, Alex. I just wanted to have a chat about it, and I loved it.
That was a wicked topic. Loved it. What do you got for
Awesome. So
tip?
it's funny. My tip kind of correlates to something you said earlier, but I want to do a mobility check. So it's just something you can do that I do constantly, all day, every day. But something I want to do as my future self is get down on the floor daily. It's an easy mobility check. Getting down and getting back up off the floor is something I want to be able to do as a grandparent, a great grandparent. So it's just a way to keep yourself active, keeps your hips mobile. So if you're not able to to actually play with the kid on the floor, get down, get up, do something, maybe do a stretch or do some work on the floor. It sounds crazy, but that's an easy mobility check and something so good for our hips and low back.
To flip this around too, because a lot of our audience is new moms, but a lot of our audience are also caring for aging parents. Like this is stuff that you
Yes,
can start doing with your aging parents, right? Like encourage them to work on their mobility, encourage them to work on sitting down on a chair and standing up without supporting themselves. Like little small movements that you can do are not only good for your kids and yourself, they're good for your parents, which is going to be you down the road, right?
absolutely. And do it with them.
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Great, Adam.
I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, reach out to Jer. We're here to answer questions for you and support you. Make sure you're in our free Facebook group, Forever Fit, Forever Strong, because we do tons of coaching in that group. We support you guys in that group. We answer questions in that group. And wherever you're listening to this right now, do us a huge favor. Take a screenshot, share it to your Instagram, tag at Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.